and welcome to our Empowering Law Firm Leaders series, where we'll be talking to experts across the legal sector to discover the mindsets, behaviours, skills and digital tools that are needed to run a successful modern law firm. I'm Amy Bruce, host and head of marketing at Osprey Approach, and today I'm joined by ex-lawyer and now co-founder and co-owner of Legal Balance, who provide training, coaching and consultancy that helps turn lawyers into rainmakers. Scott Simmons, welcome Scott, thank you so much for joining me.
Hello, Amy. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So today we'll be discussing how law firms can get comfortable with business development to help them win more work from better clients. We'll cover the skills needed to close deals and overcome the fear of business development conversations. We'll also discuss how to focus on the clients you want, the impact of pricing, and improving your long-term pipeline. So Scott has recently launched the BD Breakthrough Blueprint. That's a mouthful, which is a comprehensive business development course for law firms to help them win more work from better clients. So we will definitely be diving into that a little bit more later and what is involved in that. But first of all, if you want to tell me a little bit more about yourself, Scott, your background and what's led you to where you are today.
Okay, thanks, Amy, and thank you very much for that very kind introduction. So, yes, as you mentioned, I am an ex-lawyer. I practiced for around 10 years. Started off at a small high street firm practicing residential conveyancing, and then worked my way through up to larger firms. I was doing commercial property, then corporate support, and then trust and company management, and finally ended up in a large law firm practicing corporate. And I was very fortunate at the beginning of my career because I had a head of department and a mentor who instilled in me the importance of customer service, importance of getting to know customers, putting them at the center of what we did. And that was really, really important. I moved on and went into different practice areas, and business development stayed a big part of what I was doing. That was where I was really comfortable. I found myself enjoying doing the work less and less, but enjoying speaking to clients and getting to know their goals just so much. That was really where I was having so much fun. And then in 2012, I suffered, really quite bad burnout. I've been working, I've been working under the billable hour at that point, and it had created a set of circumstances whereby I just became very, very ill. And I wasn't getting the support that I needed. So not only did I leave the firm, I actually left the profession, because at that point, I didn't see that there was a different way for me. Social media has been incredible for advancing these, these new ways of thinking and disseminating them in such a big way. But that really wasn't so open to me at that point. I didn't realize what else was out there. And so I left the profession, and I got a lot of opportunities to just focus in on business development. Businesses who knew who I was, had heard about my reputation. I built up a very good reputation for myself, in the sort of area that I was. And businesses came to me saying to me, Scott, would you help us build our footprint in different places and come and work with us? So that's what I did. That's how Legal Balance came about. My wife is the CEO of the company, because let's be honest, Amy, she is the real brains behind everything. Anything that you see from me probably come via an idea from her. So and it grew like that. And what I found was, as I was working for these companies, I almost had to go back to the drawing board with what I had learned around business development skills, because now I was doing it every day, all the time. It was my job. It was my, what I was being paid for. And I had to go back to the drawing board a little bit to understand what it was that had made me successful when I was doing it as a lawyer. I wanted to focus in on teaching and coaching lawyers how to win work, because we're coming into an age, Amy, where things are changing, they're moving really fast, and the role of a lawyer has to adapt. The reality is that once upon a time we were really trusted advisors, and we've lost that status with clients, but we need to get back to there, because that is our role. Technology, AI is going to change the way that we provide our services, but the one thing that will become ever more important is how we provide those services and how we humanize the output from AI. And getting back to being trusted advisors has never been more important. And that's why I do what I do.
I love that we've started a sales conversation with client service and getting to know them and really getting down to the nitty-gritty, spending time with them. I love that we've started there, because I mean, that's the theme of the entire conversation and of your course. So
right. And I think that's really, really important that people understand that selling is not about going door to door. It's not about selling, insurance or carpet cleaners or things like that. Those images that you have, it's not the Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, we do not have to sell stuff that people don't need. Everybody needs to get the law right. You have to get the law right. There's very, very few things in life where if you get it wrong, well, if you get the law wrong, the consequences are huge. There's very few things in life where that applies to the same extent. You've got to get the law right. It's our duty and our responsibility to let as many people know that and understand the consequences. Otherwise, the alternative is not good. So we're not selling in that idea that we have in our heads. We are helping, we are educating, and we're providing a great customer service and taking people on a journey that helps them get better results. And if you go into all of this reminding yourself that that's what we do, that we help people, you realize that you sell without ever having to sell.
Yeah, you said that sort of happened organically at the beginning anyway, and that typically is the case. We've got plenty of best practices and things to chat through in this conversation, but I'd love to just start with some quick takeaways, 3 top things, lessons that you would say you've learned from your years of experience in law firms and also working with them, that are key to running a successful modern law firm.
Okay, so 3 lessons. So when it comes to running a successful law firm, lesson number 1, and this is something that as lawyers we're not taught, and we forget. When you're running a law firm, you are running a business. You own a business, you lead a business, okay? And we are in the business of legal services. Every business has to sell its product or service. It just so happens that what we sell is legal services. And there is no business without sales. And lawyers aren't taught this at law school. They're not taught this all the way through their training contracts, early years of lawyer. And it never really becomes that apparent until partnership or C-suite or things like that. When all of a sudden the conversation is, well, how do we make more money? Then there's that realization that, hold on a second, there's an actual business here, but no one's prepared for it. And you almost get put into partnership or, go onto the board, almost like set up for failure. Come back to that in a moment, because that's number 3. But you have to remember that you're in business and you're selling something. And running a law firm means that you have to do less of the work that's put in front of you and more of everything else. And if that's what you want to be doing, then that is fantastic, because you get to build something that's all focused on how you want to provide this service and in a way that you believe in. But you're going to have to do that, doing less and less and less and less, and eventually none of the actual work. You build teams who do the work, and what you do is build a business. And you have to remember that. Number two, which I think is so important, you've got to have passion. For me, if you're passionate about what you do, it'll see you through difficult times. It'll push you to do much more business development. You might be scared about it, but if you really passionately believe in what it is that you have to offer, you'll go out there and you will sell it. Right? It'll also teach you a huge amount of resilience. It'll give you a huge amount of resilience. And people seem to think that resilience is about just pushing through brick walls. It's not. Resilience is about actually hitting those brick walls and then reminding yourself and taking care of yourself, reminding yourself that it's okay that you've hit these brick walls and to actually take care of yourself a bit. Remind yourself that these things happen and then get going again. That is as much about resilience as it is about just pushing on through and not remembering that there's a human there that needs taking care of. And the third one then is a reminder that failure isn't final. No one achieved anything great without getting it wrong over and over and over again. Lawyers, unfortunately, are set up for perfection. It's perfection or bust. And you will see it all the time in how we speak about things, the conversations we have. The fact that very often young lawyers are set up into situations where if they make even the smallest mistake, they want to hide it because they don't appreciate that everyone else around them made huge mistakes in their career. And it creates those small mistakes that they hide end up becoming really serious problems because we don't have the conversation around failure, about how we made mistakes our entire career. Failure isn't final. If you want to build a business, you are going to fail over and over and over again. You're going to make mistakes every single day. God knows I do. Right? And I did when I was practicing law. You know, in our business, I make mistakes on a daily basis, but those mistakes, the key thing is to learn from them, to learn how to not make the same mistake again, or, you know, to find ways to improve things. That, I think, when you can get out of that perfection mindset into, right, how do we just keep growing? How is failure part of the journey to success? When you can do that, you can build something really special.
I love that. Failure isn't final. And that pairs brilliantly with the resilience and the passion, because you need those to get you through the times where things are going to go wrong or things aren't great. And I also love the idea of it was almost a tip for leadership, in that if you love what you do every day, don't go into leadership, because you're not going to be doing that eventually, because there's so many other things you need to be doing in order to run the business. You're not going to be doing the work. So if that's what you love, stay where you are and be brilliant at that. So yeah, really great tips, top 3 tips there for running a successful modern law firm. So I did mention in the intro that we'll be talking about how to win more work from better clients. So one of your BD Breakthrough course modules focuses on finding more of the clients that you really want. Yeah. So why is winning better clients more important? What does that really mean?
Okay. So we want to help everybody, and that's brilliant. Okay, but we also have in our minds a way that we want to provide the service that we do. And if what you want is to provide a sort of first-rate concierge service, then there are a certain then clients are going to have to pay for it, because you can only provide that top level service to a small number of clients. So if you want to, you know, if you want, on the other hand, to sort of sack them high and pack them out and get them out quick, right, if that's the service you want to provide, brilliant, you can do that to people who will pay less. But it depends on who you are, how you want to provide that service, because the way that you want to provide the service will help you identify who is most aligned to wanting that type of service. And I'm a huge believer in access to justice. God, you know, it's so necessary in society. Otherwise, what's the point of law if everyone can't access it? But you also have to remember that if people can only afford a certain type of service, you have to either provide that service at that price or someone else has to provide it. Because if you can't provide a service that can help at that level, then all you're going to do is end up burning yourself out trying.
I was just about to say, it relates to your point at the beginning about you burning out, because you were trying to do everything for everybody. Things were stacking high and you burn out. So then you're of no use to anybody.
And that's the key, isn't it? Is that you end up being no use to anybody. You want to help, and that's what. And in a certain way, you can provide that concierge service that allows you to help fewer people who need that different service, if that's what you want to do. But you have to build a model that's around your values in a way that makes it possible to be done. So when I talk about better clients, it's about understanding the type of client that you want and then providing the service that fits with the type of client who wants to pay for that service. Because believe me, there is this feeling, I hear a lot people say, oh, the market's not good, it's more difficult. I've said it before, everybody needs law. Everybody needs the law every single day. So there's always a market out there. And if there wasn't a market, there wouldn't be lawyers out there charging thousands of pounds, tens, hundreds, millions of pounds doing it if there wasn't a market for it. And then the argument becomes, well, I could never work for those clients. Well, no, if your attitude is, I could never, no one can achieve anything if they keep saying, I can't. You never achieved anything with the phrase can't in your dictionary. If you want a certain type of client, they are out there. They are always out there, but your job is to go and find them. They will not find you on their own. You have to get out there and find them. And whether it is through social media, or whether it is through webinars, or whether it's through networking events, or whether it's through referrals, or whether it is through picking up the phone, cold calling, cold emails. Listen, I love that. And we can talk about that either today or another time. But it's hugely valuable, hugely valuable. And it should be a part of a legal business's BD strategy. But enough about that. But you've got to take this approach of, if you want the business, you have to go and find it. It will not simply fall into your lap.
Yeah, and you have to be really clear, like you said, about assigning those brand values. Who do you want to be? What do you want to stand for? How does that align to the clients that you're looking to attract? But also then, how does that align to the setup and operations you've got? And I guess the second point of my question is, so once you know what clients you've got, how do you then focus on those better clients? What is it that you need to do aside from going out and getting them? Is it to do with how your operations are set up? Is that the sort of start point?
Yeah. Remember, what you have to do is you have to create your value proposition. So who your ideal client is and how you can help them and how you go about doing it. And in the BD Breakthrough Blueprint, when we talk about precision selling, the first letter P stands for pitch in precision. And what we do is we build your value proposition, because that helps you really get clear about what it is that you're offering and how you go about doing it. Right. You have to be set up to provide the level of service to the type of client that you want to provide. So everything around you has to be set up that way. Yeah, there's elements that can be sort of aspirational, but you can't, undersell and over deliver. You can't oversell and under deliver. The minute you tell people that you can do something and then you don't deliver on it, that's them gone for good. They'll never come back to you. But your reputation then takes a hit, because they'll tell people that you overpromised and under delivered. So you have to set yourself up to deliver what you want to do. And there are starting levels for every type of product and service out there that can help you deliver these things to get you started. That's the beauty of some of these products, is they can ease you in without it having to cost you loads of money that you may not necessarily have. But if you have to decide what you want your business to be and then go out there and build it.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of tools and things out there, but like you said, I think the key thing is being clear on what you want to achieve, having that strategy, having that vision in line, and then bringing those things into support you. I love that. I've worked in marketing for a very long time now, which means that I've worked with sales teams for a very long time now. And one skill that I'm particularly jealous of is their ability to control that conversation and almost take charge of the room. They seem to just have no fear, and perhaps it's that fear that stopped me from dipping my toe into sales before. But yeah, and I guess for lawyers as well, it's also that fear that stops them or puts that barrier up to having that sort of natural business development conversation or talking about price, or that those things are often avoided. So firstly, I want to ask you, is that confidence learned or innate? Could I go into sales if I wanted to? Is there something I can learn? And then what are your recommendations for, helping to ease that? Because at the end of the day, we've all got to take part in sales, whether that's in your personal life, selling, persuading someone to do something you want to do, or whether that's, in a law firm.
Right. Okay. So that's such a good question, because I get really annoyed. I get really annoyed by people who say, oh, you know what, whatever that talent is, that skill, whatever it is, it's just innate within them. There is nothing more frustrating for somebody who has put in thousands and thousands of hours of hard work to get to where they were, to be told, oh, you're a natural. It's not right. We
make it look so easy.
they make it look so easy. Yeah, that would be the years I spent working really hard, finding it really tough, and learning it. Okay, there is, you ask any sports person, you read the stories of the best sports people out there, and the story is always the same. It wasn't natural ability. It was years and thousands of hours of whatever that sport is, of getting up first thing in the morning and doing hours of it, and then thinking about it at night and crunching the data and looking at how you can improve things just 1%. I mean, it's absolutely, it always astounds me that we look at it and we go, someone like, I don't know, Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi or the Williams sisters, and they go, oh, look at them. That sort of natural ability to just glide across the tennis court or glide around the pitch. Every one of them will tell you the same thing. I mean, first onto the training ground, last off, hours and hours and hours. They'll all tell you the same thing, and the same applies to selling. I hear people say, oh, extroverts are more natural at selling than introverts. Absolute rubbish. For starters, a lot of people confuse introversion and extroversion with being shy, and that is not what introversion is. Anybody can be good at selling. It is just a skill that you learn and you hone every single day. And again, the reason that we developed the BD Breakthrough Blueprint is because it's really simple. And it's really simple because I'm an idiot. And if I can learn this stuff, anybody can learn it. And it's so important, Amy, that we don't tell ourselves that there are just some people that can do these things and some people that can't. Anybody can learn anything. You just have to start with the basics. People look at, I don't know, physicists or whatever, they go, oh my God, I could never do that. Well, all they did was just start at the very beginning and just keep learning. And yeah, they enjoyed it. And when you enjoy something, you'll put more time into it and you won't be so resistant to it. But we've all got something that we enjoy. And when we've got that enjoyment in it, we will just push ourselves a little bit more and more to do these things.
I think it's the reframing almost, isn't it? What you said about not having the sales focus, but having that customer interaction, that client building, relationship building focus, switching it over. Because like you said, everyone goes into law to help people at the core. And that's what, the part of the sales process is all about.
Go into every single meeting, Amy, saying, I really want to help this person. And you are going to think to yourself constantly, how can I help them? Okay, well, I help by asking questions, and it's as easy as starting with, hi, how's your day? How did you get here? Where'd you come from? You know, those things. What did you get up to the weekend? Those sort of rapport builders that ease people in. And then you ask them what their goals are. What is it that you've come here to achieve? And what would happen if you didn't achieve that? And you're going through a process with them. And all of this, again, it's in the course, because it's so simple. You're just helping people. You're helping yourself understand them better, and you're giving them an idea of what their future could look like when they work with you. But from your perspective, you want to gain as much information from them, because the more information you gather, the more you can help.
I love the word curiosity, and curiosity just lends itself so much to the sales process, because it's just all about asking questions. Be curious, so, you know, get a bit personal, ask the right questions, and you'll glean all this stuff that will allow you to then communicate that value more effectively to them, because you'll know what means something to them and what they're looking to achieve. I love that idea.
Yeah, and also with that, when you've got that level of curiosity, those scoping conversations that we have that uncover information, very often what happens is that we have very brief scoping conversations, because we may or may not be charging for them under the billable hour. But if we don't, you know, we'll go away, we'll start creating these documents that get us towards, and halfway down the line, the client says, oh, actually, hold on, that's not correct, because we're doing it this way. And actually, it fundamentally changes the agreement. But you'd have known that if you'd have asked the question at the outset, but you didn't, because you kind of feel, well, we'll do this as we go along. We'll learn more and more as we go along. And actually, that 5-second question gives a 2-minute answer that changes the entire agreement, that gets the agreement done. And now you've got a client going to you, saying to you, hold on, this isn't quite what was agreed. Or why didn't we cover this earlier on? Because now we're arguing over something that really isn't that important, that has changed the relationship. Curiosity, I mean, is the center of everything.
Yeah, I love that. I just want to touch back on the bit about fear, because it made me think about the years of practice that everyone's put in. We've seen you in that perfection of sales role, but actually we've not seen you fumble, and we've not seen you drop the ball previously when you were starting out. But it's all about that experimentation that you mentioned as well. It's that thing of, I'm not going to be perfect in the first conversation. I wasn't taught this before. I need to start somewhere small, and I need to see what what works for me, what's the style for me, and experiment in order to get into your flow and your sort of, you know, structure.
Okay, and this is really important. And where it becomes a problem is when we don't have a big pipeline of opportunities. So every time somebody comes to us to talk about work, we go in with the mindset of, I could really do with this, so I need to win it. So then the mindset is very, very different, because there is that level of desperation, and it comes across, and the price ends up not being good enough for you, and the conversation doesn't quite go the way you'd want it, and you may still not win the work, but you go in with a level of, I really need this, and you don't experiment in the right way. You experiment from a point of almost being behind, being quite desperate for it. So really what you're trying to do is you're just trying to win the work, and you'll do whatever it takes. When you create a big enough pipeline of opportunities, you simply could, if you won every single one of those opportunities, you'd be so badly under-resourced very quickly that you'd find yourself in trouble. So you don't want to win every piece of work. You want to win the piece of work that really match your values, that you can price in a way that is fair to you and the client. So that's why pricing and business development are so closely linked. But the more conversations you're having, the more you can test out what you're saying, how you're doing it, and the results that you're getting. And you can put data to it. We've become very good at, I can tell I would say 95% of the time, when I want to work with a client, whether that client's going to work with us. I'm very good at that now because I've honed it. And and I used to be that good. Sometimes I think, oh, this is dead cert. and a lot of the times it wouldn't happen. Now but it's not like I've got this natural, what's it called, sixth sense that whether people are going to work with me. Firstly, I'm at a point where now, because I've got a constant flow of opportunities, I can afford to be in a position where I can turn work down. And I can say to people, you know, this isn't the best fit. There's someone else out there who might work well for you. But that's because I'm constantly doing business development. The opportunities keep coming along, and I get to decide, as much as the client does, I get to decide whether I want to work with them. And it creates an entirely different conversation. And it creates something where I'm experimenting every day, but I'm experimenting from a place of real confidence. And it takes time and it takes practice. It is not, but I am not there's no such thing as natural salesperson. It's not natural. I've had to learn, and it comes from a place of confidence because I'm doing it so often.
Yeah, there's so many tabs open in my brain from what you've just said there, but I love the idea of empowering the employees to experiment and do those things, and it's making the lawyer, the legal professional, feel in a good, confident place for that. And I guess it's not actually, we talk to lawyers and to solicitors, but actually this is to the firm as a whole. Yep. It's about making sure that aligns with the culture of the firm, I suppose. It can't just be the lawyer's responsibility on their own to be a part of this sort of business development strategy and plan.
Right. So interestingly, in Precision, at the end, N for normality, is all about culture. Okay. And how do you instill a culture of business development within the business? See, I take it back to the sort of basics of culture, and in that section I talk about the book The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle, which for me, it's just behind me there.
I've not read that.
It's one of the most fantastic books I've ever read. It has defined the way that we run Legal Balance. You talked about it, empowering your team members. And it's so fundamental, because if you want people to learn something, they've got to learn it in a place of feeling safe to make mistakes. We talked about mistakes earlier on. The legal profession is not a great place still for making mistakes. And yet, if you want people to learn something, which is going to take time to learn, they've got to know that they're going to get it wrong, and it's going to be okay to get it wrong. And it is okay to get it wrong. You know, unlike with the law, if you make a mistake in business development, it is not the end of them. It's not it's not a big deal. It really is not. You can just go again, and you can learn. You can say to yourself, well, what did I do here that went well, and what did I do that didn't go well, and what would I change? So that those constant after action reviews. But you've got the ability then to learn how to do these things. And you talked about, you know, firm-wide strategy. Absolutely. The firm should have a strategy about who it wants to target and who its ideal clients are. And then within that, empower every team member to go out there and win those clients. And as the business grows, you'll have maybe a few different ideal client types. And then it might become a bit more personalized within, you know, to each lawyer as they grow and build. And that's the case with lawyers. You know, in bigger businesses, individual lawyers will have their own ideal client types, but it will fit within, or it should fit within an overarching strategy for the business. But you can do all of that, but it comes down to putting lawyers in that really safe space to learn and grow, make mistakes and develop.
Yeah, definitely. That continuous improvement, psychological safety, culture, it all massively plays a part. And I've spoken to a lot of law firm leaders now, and culture sits at the heart of everything. You can't make any sort of change, whether that's process, tech, pricing, business development, unless you've got that right culture in. I'm just going to go back to pricing because it's such a hot topic at the moment, and I don't want to touch over it. So you did join us with Sean Jardine in our Build Better Habits series.
Oh, sure.
And you discussed, it was a great conversation, and I recommend everybody check it out. It was about value-based pricing and the importance of building a client-focused brand and how that impacts one another. But you touched on it there that typically lawyers price out of fear in order to win the job. Perhaps that's because of the culture in the firm, or perhaps that's because they haven't got that pipeline that you were talking about, and that it then means that either the price isn't based on value at all, because that's not the focus, and actually it's not even based on time either, because they heavily discount it, so it's not even relevant of how much time it's going to take. So have you got any sort of top tips or best practices? Obviously, implementing value-based pricing is, it's a big step. Read Sean's book. It's nine-point step implementation process. But do you have any sort of best practices or tips to how to start that conversation, and how pricing impacts your pipeline and sort of, it's a big conversation, but hard question. Sorry.
It is a massive question. And the thing is, I really, really hate the billable hour. I think it's been so detrimental to the legal profession. And you have to remember that it's only been mainstream in the legal profession for, since the early 70s. Prior to that, we were value pricing our work. And then this thing took over, and it took over as a productivity tool, and then it became a method for an entire business model, because then we could put an hourly rate, which, by the way, is completely made up. Okay, people who argue against the value pricing will say, well, it's just made up figures. Well, so's the hourly rate. Okay, the problem, as you identified with the hourly rate, is that you end up discounting. So the industry average across the profession is somewhere between 15 and 20%, but I know businesses that will write off 40 to 60%. And then you just think to yourself, well, instead of putting your hourly rate at that point, if you're going to discount 40%, just actually lower your hourly rate and tell people, you don't discount. The price is the price, and all that. But we don't. So then with the hourly rate, what we do is we talk about the value that we bring, and then we say actually our hourly rate means our value is in our time. And people are buying time. They're buying your outcomes, they're buying the service, they're buying your knowledge, all of the peace of mind, all those things that we talk about when we talk about value-based pricing. Right. Again, what it ultimately comes down to is, if your pipeline is larger and you're then able to practice what you're doing, your confidence in your pricing will go up 100%. 100%, because you won't be pricing from a place of fear, a scarcity mindset. Right. But from there, you have to go back to this idea that what's your real value? What is it that you bring to the table? When you combine that with sitting down with people and scoping properly, the reason that we end up discounting, the reason that things go wrong, is because we don't scope properly. Now, that scoping conversation isn't just scoping the actual work, the piece of work that you are doing. You're scoping the client. You're understanding how the client values not just this piece of work, but this sort of thing generally, their business more generally, and their goals, challenges even more generally. Okay, when you actually yes, a complicated deal, you could be scoping for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half, or even beyond. I'm sure they didn't get the Twitter deal scoped in 45 minutes. Okay, but still, however complicated it is, however long that scoping conversation takes, I will guarantee you write off more time than it took you to scope, than it would have taken you to scope it. And scoping it would have meant that you recover more of your fee than you are currently recovering because you didn't scope it.
Mm.
You know, we're not here to talk about value-based pricing, but all of that scoping helps you to value price it better because you understand the client. But even for those who want to continue for a while with the billable hour, because it will be coming to an end, AI will see to that. Even those who do, if you scope it better and you help the client and you talk to the client, conversation is everything. If you front load your conversations, you'll be writing off a lot less time. You'll have a better relationship with the client if you front load your conversations and talk through everything at the outset. If you do value price or you do menu price, any form of upfront pricing, if you have those conversations up front, the client will understand that as long as the scope stays the same, the price stays the same. And if they want the scope to change, they understand that the price will have to change, because no one, Amy, walks into a restaurant, orders their food, and then says, actually, once they're underway, yeah, I'd like some additional sides. And then when the bill comes out afterwards, no one sits there and goes, yeah, but I asked for that afterwards. I figured you'd just give that to me for free. I would ask anybody, any lawyer, to go into a restaurant and try that one on. We allow clients to say to us, yeah, but I didn't realize you were going to charge me for that. Well, okay, firstly, they didn't realize because you didn't have the conversation with them. That's as much on you as it is them. But clients will, because they understand the history of lawyers, they'll try their luck a little bit. Your job is to set the boundaries and say to them, if this is the scope, this is the price. As long as the scope stays the same, the price will stay the same. But if you change the scope, the price will have to change. And what I will do is, before we do any work, I'll sit with you, discuss the change of scope and discuss what that means in terms of price change. I hear lawyers say it to me, but clients get angry about that. No, they don't. I've never known a single client who has had the conversation at the outset, Amy. I've never known a single client to be angry when a lawyer then says, do you remember that conversation we had at the outset? Scope change, price change. Well, here we are, scope is changing, so price is going to change. I've never, ever in all my years of practicing or working with this, I've never, ever known a single client to complain when they had the conversation at the outset.
Yeah, I think there's three things, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I think are really key takeaways from that. Firstly is deliver on your promises. So if you've set the values that you're going to do, make sure you deliver on them. Don't say you're going to go above and beyond if you don't. Be curious. Make sure you're asking the right questions. Dedicate time to the right questions. It'll save you time in the long run. Be curious. And then set expectations. So be very clear what you are, what you aren't going to deliver. Have that upfront. Make sure that the customer doesn't feel confused or fearful or like you're going to spring something on them. That expectation will help you sell through those future conversations, which will inevitably come. We can't predict everything. We're not mind readers.
Right. Okay. And when you talk about setting expectations, we're in the knowledge business. That knowledge, if we don't pass that knowledge on to our clients, it's not particularly helpful to our clients. So we're in the communication business. Okay. And we have to understand that we can't keep that knowledge all to ourselves. Part of our job is to empower our clients to understand why they are paying the prices that they're paying for the work that we do for them. We're in the communication business. It's not a difficult conversation if you have it up front. Sit with a client, tell them who you are, how you like to work, tell them that you want to take the time with them to help them understand what's going on so that they have that peace of mind. Front load the conversation, and then none of it becomes difficult later on. We're in the communication business. Get comfortable having communication and having conversations with clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Communicate your value, communicate your knowledge. And to be honest, that can form very easily part of your branding and marketing plan to make sure you've got that pipeline in. But that is definitely another conversation for another day.
Yes.
That's a whole other hour. So we're at a stage where, let's say we've nailed these conversations, we've got a great pipeline coming through, we're being curious, we're having these conversations, we're setting expectations. What are some of the best practices for actually winning that client, for securing that deal? Because nobody wants to ask for business. That can feel, quite strange. So what are your sort of top tips and best practices for actually winning that client?
Okay, so this is good, because O in precision stands for open for closing. Okay, and this is you've gone through the process. You've asked the questions, you've listened for the responses, you've asked more questions. You're at that, you've listened to any concerns that they've got. And it's an interesting point, because we get through to that point and then we sit there and we want the client, we want to just wait for the client to make a decision. And we don't ask. We're so quick to ask in case they say no, that we don't ask at all. And then what we do is we sit there and we go, oh, I've got a prospective client. Oh, how's it going? Well, I spoke to them 3 months ago. They seem really interested. Do they have a piece of work? Yeah, they've gone away to think about it. Have you followed up with them? Well, no, because I don't want to seem pushy. I don't want to seem like a pushy salesperson. So that was 3 months ago. You've not heard anything. Right, okay. Ask for the work. Ask for the work. And again, this comes from confidence, which comes from building your pipeline. But ask for the work, because a prospect that sits in your, that sits in that, waiting to decide bit of your pipeline is worthless. It's money sitting around that they're not getting the outcome that they need, and you're not getting paid for the great work that you do, because you've been afraid to ask. And you're afraid to ask because you'd rather have them sat there in the pipeline than actually have them moved to the no bit. But you need people to say no, because if you're doing it enough, if you're consistent with your business development, you can't do every piece of work. So you need to just ask. If one of the things that I teach, it's in the course, is we do the scales of 1 to 10. Really simple. Okay, so it is on a scale of 1 to 10. How are you feeling? Gone through all of this process. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about going ahead? Okay, 9 and 10, brilliant. Right, should we go ahead? 7, 8, I know it's kind of a bit more like the net promoter score. 7 and 8, okay, well, there might just be something that we need to uncover to push them over the edge. 6 and below, right, there's a lot that needs to be done, because at 6 and below, they're definitely not, they're not saying yes. And 6 and below, you want people who feel really, really good about working with you. 7 and 8 isn't quite there. There's probably one thing. And you ask the question, okay, what do we need to get you to 10? Ask them what's holding them back.
That's so true. And it makes that, like, even just that question, how are you feeling from 1 to 10, immediately switches that to, I'm looking intrinsically then, and I'm thinking to myself, well, how do I actually feel? And it makes me feel like you care about where I am, what I'm thinking about, what I'm concerned of. And then that forces the conversation to open again, because if they're not happy, well, they'll tell you, and that's their opportunity to discuss it. I love that.
Right. Remember that your job in these conversations is to get somebody to change their thinking and take action. Right? They need to take action, because, again, we're back to the fact that it's the law and they need to get it right. Right. So your job is to educate them and take control of the conversation. You talked about, you mentioned that, take control of the conversation, help them get to a point whereby they feel they need to take action. And the best way to do that is to be adding and creating value throughout the conversation. Sometimes I get people saying to me, Scott, why do you give away so much information for free online or wherever? And I'm like, because how's anyone supposed to know what it would be like working with me if I just refuse to give away anything for free? This is just a tiny bit of what you can do when you work with me. But they'll never know that if I don't ever talk about what it is that you can achieve when you work with me. So I want to give it away, because even if you never work with me, this is so fundamental to the future of the legal profession. You've got to start doing it. And I'm happy to give some of this stuff away. what I want is for people to work with me. I want people to buy the digital course. I want lawyers to get on that journey to becoming rainmakers, because it really is just going to be the future of the legal profession. But coming back to this point, you have to ask for the work, because you can't expect, clients have got so many competing priorities. Things have to add up. Things have to fit into place. Need and timing fall in there. Is the sort of budget right as well? Something that I call banter, 6 parts that you have to all put together to create the right circumstances for asking for the work. You have to have all those things fall into place, but you also just have to ask, because by asking, you can then say, well, what do we need? What do we need to get right here, so that you'll go ahead? Because if you think they're the right fit for you and you want to work with them, you should do within the bounds of what's possible. You should help them get to that point where you can help give them the best outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to that curiosity. It's curiosity at the beginning of the pipeline, the beginning of the journey, and then curiosity when you're looking to make that sale. And actually, I think sometimes we give clients too much credit, because we think that they're in control and they know what they want and they know what they need. But actually, they need steering along, they need helping, they need their hand holding. And the more that we ask those questions, and the more that we can guide them through that journey, the more they're going to think, he knows what I'm talking about. He knows what's going on. I'm going to choose him to guide me through, because he already has so far.
It takes years and years of constant learning to understand and keep up with the law. Why is it that we think that people just know when they need the law? The vast majority of people don't know when they need the law, and it can be as basic as terms and conditions for your business. Most people just think, well, we can just do it on a handshake, or people will be, people will be great and they'll be reasonable, and the vast majority of people will be, but you only need one person not to be. And if you don't have terms and conditions in place, you are in a world of trouble, and you might get away with it for years. But that one person will cost you potentially thousands and thousands of pounds, when, terms and conditions might have cost you 10, 20, times less than what you're paying out. And the value that we bring to people is absolutely huge. We have to be the people to help people understand that, because it's not up to them to just know that they need these things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like we were sort of touched on very briefly, because it's a whole other conversation, but giving away that information and guiding people and steering people in the right direction can actually form part of your marketing strategy, which therefore brings that pipeline in to allow you to work your magic and work those skills that you've been practicing on to
Absolutely
scope the project and make that sale.
And remember also that personal branding has become such a big thing, particularly since COVID. But over the last few years, personal branding has become really, really important, and probably more so in a lot of ways than actual, a business's brand, because you're seeing a human deliver this information to you, and you feel a connection with that individual, and you build that trust with that individual. And there's something as important as this. It's much harder for a business to create that kind of trust than it is for an individual who you can see and who you can hear and who delivers it in a way that you understand and resonate with. And when you can put yourself out there, yes, social media and videos and things like that webinars can seem scary. And hey, it was when I first started. I hated the idea of doing all of this stuff. And it's just practice. But the more you do it, the more information you get out there, the more people will start to like your content, the way that you deliver these things, and feel as though you can help them. And that leads to those opportunities.
100%. I think that's the small and small, maybe not easy takeaway for people today, to really work on that, because people buy from people, and they're buying not only the outcome you say you can deliver, but they're buying into you and the relationship they're going to deliver, especially from a lawyer who doesn't have the account management team or can pass it on to a success team. A lot of the time they're winning that business and taking them through. So Yeah, I think that's a brilliant way to end the conversation. I feel like we could talk for forever. There's so many great modules and points in the BD Breakthrough course that will help lawyers turn lawyers into rainmakers. So thank you so much for your time today, Scott. Yeah, I hope there's some great best practices and takeouts for legal professionals today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Amy. It's been so much fun.